most famous physical therapist on the internet.
Hi, folks. Brad Heineck, physical therapist.
Hey, I'm Chris, the pharmacist.
And I'm exactly one half of the Bob and Brad physical therapy channel, and we're here to help you to be physically fit, pain-free, and healthy with what you eat. Chris is here today. He's done a ton of research on the benefits of honey and what kind of honey you should get and maybe what things you shouldn't get to get the maximum benefits. Honey is it's just wonderful. I'm excited to get through this because this is going to be part of my diet. And I don't know what else to say, Chris. Oh, Bob's not here today, but he's going to be back. Don't worry. Last time we had a guest on, everyone, where's Bob? Where's Bob? He's fine.
He'll be back.
Yeah, don't
we
worry.
promise. He's not going
he,
anywhere.
He was just
He's
here
doing
earlier.
some Christmas shopping.
Yeah. All right. Honey, Chris, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about the benefits of raw honey specifically, but we'll touch on the whole processing of the whole thing. So, but
raw versus
organic versus plain old processed honey.
So when you go to the store, because I found out, you got to read the labels to find out what is what, and then this processed honey is maybe the least
effective of the bunch. I mean, it all
nutritionally
speaking. So I mean, I think the interesting thing, Brad, honey has been around historically. We found evidence that it's been used by humans for 8,000 years.
Sure.
Not only as for food, but also for medicinal purposes.
Sure.
And so the aspects that we'll probably focus on more today probably specifically be raw honey, which is honey that comes in its most natural state right out of the hive and just strained. I mean, that's what this guy is here. I don't know if you guys see, it's pretty viscous stuff. I don't know that the camera, Tanner, I'm not sure if you can see, but it's somewhat opaque. It's not a clear honey. If we had gotten one of those little bears in the grocery store that shows the golden honey that we see probably on TV and most commercials, you will see that that's probably a much more processed honey, and that's
so it's lighter in color.
But even you'll notice, the honey on the end, which is a straight up raw honey. It's very light in color. So the color depends on what the bees got from their pollen and what they used. The time of the year.
These are both. Yep. This is organic. This is raw. There's a little bit different. We'll talk about it.
The middle one is actually a wildflower honey.
Can you see that? Okay.
So you will see differences when you go into a grocery store. That you're going to find difference, and the flavors, as you're noting, Brad is checking out right now. They all have unique flavors amongst themselves based on the pollen that the bees, took to help to create the honey.
Pollen in the honey?
Yeah, specifically raw. What happens between raw and processed honey is pasteurization. Pasteurization is basically, simply put, applying heat and then also filtering or straining it or ultra straining it to get a more pure, elegant product that has better shelf life and less crystallization over time.
So it's going to last a lot longer. Yeah.
Well, honey actually is one of those unique foods that never ever spoils. Just kind of like when we're looking at some of the data, actually the story goes that when they went into Tut's tomb, when they were unearthing things, they actually found
King Tut.
Okay. So ancient Egypt. They went into his tomb and they found a substance. They tasted it. It was honey, and I mean, it does not spoil.
I hope they just didn't taste it right away.
Well, the story goes is that they did taste it, and the guy got a hair in his mouth. And upon further inspection in the tomb, they found that there was a child perfectly preserved within the honey. The ancient Egyptians, pretty gross stuff, guys, but honey itself is nature's probably best preservative. So the reason that it has antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral aspects are from the sugar content, its osmolality, and its acidity. So
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I know, but it's what makes honey probably nature's most perfect.
So the sugars in the honey help it be a natural preservative?
Yeah. If you have, even like in pharmaceutical, like in compounding, we use simple syrup, and it's a 70% solution of syrup. Sugar by itself mixed with water becomes sugar water, and actually it's antimicrobial. Honey naturally has all those sugars in there and keeps bacteria at bay. To date, we know of no bacteria that is resistant to honey. So you're talking about the tough stuff like E. coli. We're talking about C. diff. I mean, you're talking about a lot of strains of bacteria that basically can't mount an attack to honey, which is why in some cases, and we did a video a few weeks ago about wound healing specifically, and it's because of those osmotic properties, the acidity, and the sugars. So they
So
all kind of
you actually put honey on an open wound to heal it is what
yep.
you're referring to,
Yeah,
which is
we'll
amazing.
kind of touch on that a little. We'll
Sure.
revisit that
Okay.
briefly. But so with respect to honey, so the processing is the difference. So what we see on the shelf of most grocery stores probably is imported from China in most cases.
Hmm.
It's heated, and then it actually, in many cases, up to 70% of the time, has either added sugars or high fructose corn syrup. So
So they
what?
pour in the sugar
Yeah,
on top of good honey.
exactly. Well, the heating destabilizes a lot of the nutrients
Okay.
and the processing of it. So, and it might even ruin some of the flavors. So, what are they? Well, honey is naturally sweet. Well, you'd be really disappointed if you had kind of a bitter tasting honey.
Yeah.
So, they add sweeteners to it to maintain the
Yeah.
appearance that
Sure.
it's this golden nectar that everybody loves to either put in their tea, their honey on their toast,
Yeah.
pancakes, whatever you use, honey, cooking, barbecue sauce, you name it. I mean, people
Hmm.
use it for a variety of different reasons. And so, to touch on it, we kind of talked briefly about wounds. You just don't take honey off the shelf and apply it to a wound. So
Right.
we'll touch on that as we dive into this a little bit more deeply. But the three examples that we have up here today, the one on the right is real thick. So that comes right out of the hive, basically. They strained it. The processing of raw honey, it doesn't ever get above 95 degrees, which is basically the standardized temperature inside a hive.
Okay.
So beekeepers would be able to speak about this much more effectively than I ever could. But if you don't ever want to microwave honey, if you ever got crystallized and you want to warm it up, you would take warm water and set the jar in there to get it back to a more liquid state. So like this is, as you can see, is kind of runny right now. I actually just bought this the other day, but it's one of those things where if it did get crystallized, just set it in warm water for a few seconds until it gets to the consistency you want. It's
Mm.
safer to warm it slowly, so you have to be kind of patient with it,
Sure.
because if you microwave it or put it in boiling water, the heat will destabilize all the good stuff that you have in there.
Okay.
So when honey is processed, and we're going back to that grocery store example, it's filtered and even they even refiltered after that, and it gives that nice smooth appearance. There's no bubbles, and it's that liquidy golden
Yeah.
nectar basically. So at that point, but with the raw honeys or an organic honey like this is probably processed through pasteurization. The two on the ends are not at all. So they are raw and come pretty much right out of the hive.
So just I know I bought this because it said organic,
Yep.
and I didn't look at it any closer. Once I start talking to you, I start looking at the other one, and this one has that it was raw. It was
Yep.
all the
Well,
about
they
as
just
close as you could
they
get.
scooped it right out of the hive.
Plus, it's close. It's only about 150 miles from here is where it was actually made,
Yep.
which I heard local honey can be better for.
Our body's immune systems.
Yeah, because of.
Yeah, there are some small anecdotal studies that suggest that if you were buying honey, if you can find a beekeeper and get honey in your area,
Mhm.
the bees made it from the flora around you. And so if there are some studies that suggest, although an allergist I'll tell you that allergy treatments are better, but by incorporating some of the pollens and things that maybe bother, let's say we'll just pick on ragweed and you're sneezing all the
Yeah,
time. Some of the pollens that the bees pick up and bring back to the hive will contain small amounts of that.
sure.
And those elements, when repeated doses of it, can help to sensitize your immune system to minimize some of those allergy symptoms.
Sure.
Now, what an allergist does in a controlled setting for either shots or drops, they actually systematically increase the amount of allergen
Okay.
to sensitize you, whether it's poison ivy, poison oak, whatever they're,
Sure.
mold, mildew, cat dander, whatever. But so it's not going to work for every allergy. But there are some small studies that suggest that it may be beneficial for some people. More science needs to be done, so I wouldn't take it to the bank, but it's certainly not going to hurt.
Right, and it's one of those things. If you're going to use honey, and you want to, It just sounds like you have nothing to lose, and
No, I mean,
possibly things to gain.
it is a nutritional powerhouse, and that's, I think, one of the things that's so amazing about the substance itself.
Why is it so good? Because I mean, it's all sugar.
Yeah,
What makes
it's funny. Yeah, it's sugar and water. So I mean, basically, it's glucose and it's fructose, and it's funny because fructose for a lot of us, and you hear high, corn syrup, high
Yeah,
fructose corn
yeah.
syrup, is negative, but the amount of fructose that's in honey is pretty negligible. Although it does compose a fair amount of the sugars, but when taken in a natural state like that and in small amounts, not negative at all. And it
Because
does,
it's got a lot of nutrients
yeah,
surrounded.
and yeah, there's 200 different nutrients in over 200 actually in honey. So I
Mm.
mean, and when you have raw honey, when it's processed, you lose a lot of those things. You're
Sure.
going to lose the enzymes, you're going to lose the polyphenols, you're going to lose the antioxidants. There's a certain level of vitamin C in there. There's all, all the pollens and proteins and enzymes, they all kind of work together.
Yep.
You get calcium, you get zinc, you get magnesium. I mean, you get so many, it's kind of like a multivitamin in a liquid form in
Oh.
many cases, but in trace amounts. So the magic health aspects from honey occur with repeated dosing. There are controlled studies that show that it may help benefit your cholesterol profile, may benefit weight loss, may actually, and with interestingly in diabetics, where there's kind of an irony here, and and we'll talk about this in a half a second, but it may even help to improve blood sugar profile.
Sure.
Honey by nature is sweeter than table sugar,
Yep.
but it actually carries more calories. So as a diabetic, you have to be very, very careful to account for what you're eating. I probably wouldn't go over maybe 15 milliliters, which is a tablespoonful, like
Per,
if you're using
per day.
per day,
Okay.
because obviously there's a caloric deficit in there that you do want to account for. So particularly if you're using insulin, but a type 2 diabetic that uses more maybe medications, although could use insulin, that it's actually shown, there's a couple of studies out there, small sample sizes, only about 70 or 80 people, where it's actually brought blood sugars down by about as much as 3%. And if you're just teetering over the edge,
Yeah.
a small amount is not going to hurt you. And so obviously coupled with eating well and exercising, which are probably some of the biggest things with diabetes that we want to focus on,
Hmm.
it might be something that if you work with your doctor, you might say, yeah, try it. Because if you replace sugar with honey as a sweetener, like whether it's baking or sweetening your coffee or your tea or whatever, you're going to put it on
Toast.
your toast and
Hmm.
jam, what replacing jelly with that, because jelly uses a lot of sugar. It's sweeter, you don't use as much. So,
Yeah.
and you'll get all the other flavonoids and antioxidants, which when you look at it from a cholesterol standpoint, there are there's a nice study that was done in Iran, oddly. They took 70 people, 35 in a control group, and 35 had basically, they called it 70 grams of honey. So, which was about 69 milliliters, which is about, 4.5 tablespoonfuls of honey
Per day.
per day.
Hmm.
And so what it showed over 8 weeks is that it reduced their cholesterol. And the cholesterol breaks down into HDL and LDL
Right.
specific, and triglycerides. So the triglycerides went down, the good stuff, the HDL went
Yep.
up, the LDL went down, the triglycerides were down. So it actually improved, and they actually lost weight. So it was only a modest amount, but like
Yeah.
a percentage
Better
or two.
going the other way.
But it didn't go the other way, which you would think when you're eating something inherently sweet.
Hmm.
But they feel that the polyphenols and the antioxidants help to work within the body system to help to naturally lower cholesterol.
Sure.
So, and again, 3% is not a magnificent number. If you're like in the 300s or something like that, it's
Yeah.
not going to replace some of the prescriptions, but it could be an adjunct to what you're doing with a nutritious, healthy, and exercise-based
Sure.
lifestyle.
Sure.
It will go a long, long way to helping you. When we stem from that, you can also find that it works really well for wound healing. We touched on that, and the reason that honey actually is and has been around for thousands of years as a wound healer is it naturally contains peroxide. So actually, there's glucose oxidase, which is a chemical in honey itself that when it oxidizes turns into peroxide. Peroxide is an antiseptic.
Sure.
So it's the stuff that makes things bubble when you have a wound. Well, when applied to certain types of wounds, and you do want to check with your doctor before you treat a wound with honey, and you don't just grab any honey off the shelf. You'd want to use either raw, but I would tell you more specifically use a medical grade honey, like Meta honey, which is a Manuka honey, which is based out of New Zealand.
New Zealand, right?
The
Mhm.
actual that honey, what's interesting is doesn't actually turn into a peroxide. It has a different substance that makes it more effective for healing.
What's Manuka?
It
plant?
comes from Manuka plant. It's
Okay.
native to New Zealand and
Okay.
Australia.
right.
So it's expensive stuff too, but pretty tasty. I've had some, so it's not bad. But it's that little jar is about $25 a jar. So it's
If that was Manuka.
it was Manuka, so
Okay.
it's pretty pricey. But it does work to help to, so if it's for ulcers or burns, superficial wounds, it does have a place in that. So you want to cover it with an occlusive dressing. It can,
Well, we actually have a video
Yep.
dedicated to that. So if you go Bob and Brad on YouTube, look up honey for wounds.
Yep.
That should pop right up.
Yeah, so I don't want to go too deeply in it, but it's just something, again, just don't buy honey off the shelf and throw it on a cut. So it's it's not the same. But moving from that, because of the antioxidants and other properties that are in this, they've actually shown some studies, at least in or actually in lab settings, where it actually cut down renal carcinoma cells. And
So what does that mean?
so basically,
Hmm.
it may have some cancer fighting effects.
Okay.
So, not to say that if you had the devastating news that you had cancer, just eat honey all the time. It's not going to hurt you, but I don't know if it'll necessarily cure you. But it does seem to show, at least in a laboratory setting, that it can actually stop the proliferation of those abnormal cancer cells.
Sure.
So there's a variety of different reasons for that. The antioxidant aspects, the polyphenols, these things basically turn off the production of that uncontrolled growth.
Yeah.
The sugar content, the osmolality, the acidity stop the growth of the cells. So it was really kind of fascinating. So I think there's some interesting properties. A ton more research needs to be done. You can't go just willy-nilly and just say, I'm going to just treat everything with raw honey. But
Yeah.
it's certainly something that if you put it into your diet, your lifestyle, coupled with exercise, rest, eating well in general, I think it can supplement a lot of things that can help us.
Yeah, I definitely am. I'm going to start using it on my yogurt because I get the yogurt with no sugar in it,
Yep.
which doesn't.
Doesn't
It's getting better. I'm starting to
Getting used to it.
acclimate a taste to it.
Gotta throw
But
some
a little bit
blueberries
of
in.
honey.
Yeah.
And now I found out that this honey. So when I go, you really need to look at the label. Make sure it's raw, organic may or may not be the key word, but raw, and then see where it's made. Like, this is made up by the Twin Cities in
Yep.
Minnesota. There was another one that was made 20 miles from here. I didn't get that because it came in a plastic bottle, and I personally like things that are in glass better because if you got plastic, there may be that pH chemical that's in the plastic, and so,
Yeah.
and that's just I'm not sure. I don't
It's
know
a
what
personal
that
choice and it's a preference. A lot of companies are trying to go away from that, but it's still
away from the plastic.
from the type the BPH stuff.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
But
But so anyways, and other people may have that same thing,
no,
but
but
still look it
I think
over
glass
and
is better. Well, and the other cool thing about honey too is because it's an energy. I mean, I before we go riding, I take a
That's-
slug of honey. So straight out. Yeah, I do. Before workouts, it works great.
yeah.
You get your calories, it gets you moving. And actually, my wife makes protein balls with peanut
Uh-huh.
butter, and
And,
it's
and honey.
so like post exercise, it's good recovery.
And this is the kind you usually get?
Yeah.
Cool. Where do you get it?
I got that at the grocery store.
Oh,
for
really?
Festival
Made.
specifically.
Where's it made?
That one's in Texas.
Oh, really? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so I mean, but if you want to keep it local and support your local beekeepers, I mean, look in your area. You'll keep-
Especially if you have allergies, it
yeah,
may have some
and it
positive
comes in a
effects.
variety of different colors, and the colors that you'll see, I mean, can be almost as dark as black to as kind of yellow as what Brad has on the end there. It depends on the flowers that were pollinated from, actually
Mhm.
even the time of the year. So there was kind of some interesting, so the amount of benefits can change from how it's harvested. So it's kind of interesting stuff.
And it's amazing. I've been tasting all these while we've been talking, and there's a distinct difference.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it
All
all
sweet,
tastes
but
like honey.
They're
but
similar, but they're different.
yeah, it might be a little bit fruitier. It might be a little bit stronger.
It's just like beers. You
Yeah,
get some craft beers. Instead of going
Well-
to craft beer tasting, have a honey tasting party.
Well, it's true, but again, you notice the colors from a health aspect. Probably the darker, the better.
Sure.
There are more flavonoids, more antioxidants.
Yep.
Those are the things that will probably help to drive the bus and improve the health quotient of the honey that you're choosing. So if you're going to choose anything, I would do with a raw, and then if you did lightly processed, if you didn't have access to raw honey,
Mhm.
maybe hard to come by at the time of the year, that type of thing. But the reality of it is that raw is going to probably provide the most pound per punch.
And if you want to go hardcore and you have the appropriate area,
Oh, there you go.
make your own honey. Get some beehives, order them up, set them out in the yard, and see. Get a little education.
Yeah.
That'll take some practice.
One thing to touch on too, there are a couple of negative aspects with honey. So
Ah.
just be careful if you have a specific bee allergy, specifically pollen.
Oh, yeah.
Raw honey, because it will contain pollen, could trigger an allergic reaction. So be real
Oh,
careful
sure.
with that. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. You never want to give honey to somebody that's under the age of 1
It says that right on the jar here.
because it can cause, there are botulism spores in there. And for you or me or Tanner or anybody else that's adult aged, our bodies, our digestive tract can handle those spores, no big deal. But if you're under the age of
Infants,
1,
yeah.
it could be fatal.
No
at the-
honey.
So
Okay.
no honey at the age of 1. The other thing I guess I didn't talk on, just because of the time of the year, coughing. Phenomenal cough suppressant. So
Oh.
actually, there are side-by-side studies that say that it'll work as well as the active ingredient dextromethorphan, which is what you see in your Robitussin, your Delsums,
Sure.
which are things that I recommend for people readily. But I find myself more and more telling people just grab 15 milliliters of honey once or twice a day, and it will suppress and quiet that cough as effectively as well. And also it soothes the sore throat. There are the antimicrobial activities. So if it's a strep throat case, it'll actually maybe help to heal you a little bit more quickly if you're
Oh.
on an antibiotic on top of it. So a couple of good things there for honey that,
Yeah.
particularly raw honey, that helps our bodies out, and I think it can be adopted as part of a healthy lifestyle.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get this into my protocol.
There you go.
All right. Thanks
Good
for
stuff.
coming, Chris. We
Absolutely.
appreciate it. And keep your honey safe.
There you go. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.